There are a number of, if we're going to be diplomatic about it, controversial game design philosophies that are being introduced during the Battle for Azeroth expansion, and I was asked to comment on action that the community can take to change a direction that the development team are taking on future content. Please note I'm going to talk about lobbying in general and not specifically on one particular issue. This video isn't about personal loot, I've already done that. So what I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to go through instances in the past of where this has been attempted, reasons why it can or cannot happen, and then I'm going to come back to the specific points in the original comments request again at the end of the video just to make sure that everything has been answered, hopefully to everyone's satisfaction. Now, the biggest case that I can recall where Blizzard have gone, right, this is the way it's going to be from now on, and the community have changed that direction into completely the opposite direction, has been flying. During Warlords of Draenor, some of you may remember, Blizzard announced that flying was never going to be in the game again. Flying wasn't there at the beginning of the expansion. This was the first time that flying had not been available from at least a level cap at the start of an expansion, and people wondering what's happening. Unbeknownst to us, Blizzard had planned that it should never be a thing. It was never going to be in WoD, it was never going to be in Legion, it was never going to be in any expansion again. The community were up in arms, and Blizzard, a few days later, literally a few days later, had to recant and say, okay, flying will be in, you'll have to give us some time to sort it out. They were totally unprepared for this, they had not planned for this, and it took them quite a lot of extra time to be able to get it implemented. That was an example of something for which the whole community, not every single player, for example, I was in favour of it, but I also knew that Blizzard wouldn't get away with it. But what I mean is every section of the community, from high-end raiders to less serious raiders to very casual raiders to people who don't raid at all, to people who just PvP, to people who, you know, just do solo stuff, questing. Everyone, the whole gamut of the player base was against it in terms of majority populations. So we have to distinguish between design decisions which are unpopular among some players but actually popular against others. In a situation like that, of course, they have to please some people and not others. And in fact, the irony is, whenever we go through all the very unpopular things that Blizzard are bringing into Battle for Azeroth, one thing that people keep trying to say is, well, it's only these people who are upset about it. You know, these majority of people are actually happy about these changes. When a lot of them, that's not necessarily the case. But of course, where that is the case, inevitably Blizzard have to make a decision based upon the majority who will actually care about it. There are some aspects of the game, for example, take LFR. A lot of very high-end raiders don't like the idea of LFR, or indeed multiple modes of raiding at all. But of course it benefits a much greater portion of the population. So in that case, of course, that is what Blizzard do. Now, community action, as I've said, only works when it's unpopular for everyone. The other thing is also being honest. I don't recall an effective example of lobbying Blizzard by influencers other than the classic WoW issue. That is the only issue where I feel that sustained pressure has been brought onto Blizzard and they've eventually relented. There's never been a case where I can recall a large YouTuber or streamer deciding to take up a cause, if you like, and change Blizzard's mind about something. It never happens. Now, why does it never happen? Maybe it's because the people reporting on issues that Blizzard do are doing just that. They see themselves as just reporting on what Blizzard are doing, adding their own commentary in, of course, but ultimately not trying to change Blizzard's mind on a particular thing. Maybe they think that it'd be morally wrong for them to do that as an influencer. Maybe they feel that putting themselves in opposition to Blizzard on any issues means that they would be less likely to be able to carry out interviews when they go to large events. That's possible as well. Or maybe it just wouldn't be effective. Maybe they just don't think it would be that effective. After all, if you say something, you say, look, I really believe in this, there might be a load of people who watch you and are interested in what you have to say about it, but wouldn't necessarily agree with you. But what has certainly not been the case, as far as I can ever remember, is a large influencer getting involved on a cause and rallying the community to sort of say to Blizzard, no, we want this. I don't remember that ever being the case. Now, myself, on the other hand, I'm small fry, so I can basically say exactly what I feel. I don't have to be diplomatic, especially. I'm not into offending people. I actually feel very bad when I offend people, but at the same time, I don't feel the need to be especially diplomatic. Now, the other thing to bear in mind from Blizzard's point of view is you have to realise that even when there's a lot of community opposition to a feature, there will always be those that support Blizzard on it. It's easy for them to live in a bubble where they view all criticism as trolling because there are an army of white knights who will applaud everything they do. Okay? There are also people who will comment on a subject for which they don't really appreciate it because it doesn't cover their sphere within the game itself. A classic case in point is these GCD changes. I've had a minority of people, but still a number of people who have said that these GCD changes are a good thing, based on what Ian Hazzard said in the Q&A. But not a single person has been able to tell me why, because everything he said about it was nonsense, and in fact you will not find anyone in, for example, Top 100 Guild, senior theory crafters, top PvP players. You will not see anyone that are at the top of their game and therefore understand aspects of the game and how this is going to affect it, that consider it to be a good idea, for PvE at any rate. But there's still people going, oh yeah, it makes sense because, he said it's there for the long-term health of the game. Oh, well, that's a good thing. Long-term health of the game, a good thing. So therefore it's a good thing. But no one's actually saying how it benefits the long-term health of the game, least of all the game director himself. A number of people have tried to come up with, oh, well, it's about this and it's about that, which it isn't at all. But the key point is this: if it was about some of these things that people are saying is the real reason, why didn't Ian himself say that? He spoke for over 10 minutes on the issue, saying nothing. But anyway, that's just one particular issue. Personal loot, referring to the original comment that I got again, is one that actually has its genuine supporters. This isn't one which is just people who are opposed to it and people who don't understand it. Because in actual fact, there are people who will like this. There are mythic raiders who actively want it. Now, I think they're wrong. Okay, that's my opinion. But the fact of the matter is, this is an issue of some people being opposed to the system and some people being in favour of it. In a situation like that, Blizzard have to decide one way or the other. Obviously, the side they decide on is going to be very happy. The side they decide against is going to be very unhappy. But we have to live with that. I don't agree with it, but I accept it because I also accept that there are people who, for very genuine reasons, think it's a good idea. But coming back to the GCD issue without going on about it again, that only affects a small number of players. There are only a small number of players who effectively use global cooldowns anyway. It's ironic that Ian implied that if you don't like the changes, then you're unskilled. He didn't actually say that, but he was saying that these changes will allow the more skilled players to be able to distinguish themselves. So, by extension, you can sort of argue that actually it's the skilled players who are in favour of it. But in actual fact, it is those skilled players, the most skilled players in the game, who are opposed to it, the most vocally opposed to it. Most unskilled players, if you want to call them that, won't even be aware of it and will certainly not be affected. Many players who don't follow things on forums or watch these Q&As, they will go into BFA, may not even notice. Some of these players may not even realise that some of their abilities are off the global cooldown already. So although this isn't something that anyone has asked for, and so by definition can't be something that has genuine support, Blizzard will always get their fake support and the opposition to it is too small, and they'll always get support which is not intended to be fake, but is from people who buy the explanations because they don't really understand the situations that are being talked about. Removal of key abilities associated with the artifact weapons. I mean, Blizzard have been stringing us along with the Azerite traits on that one. There's a lot of players very concerned with the abilities that you've got in Legion on your artifacts being lost. And Blizzard have said, well, that's because the classes were designed without the artifacts in, and then the artifact abilities were put on top of them. Which is, of course, not true. many of us who play classes and specs where the artifact abilities are an integral part of the overall playstyle will know that that is not true. But again, it's something they can easily say, and someone who plays the game in a very uncoordinated manner, which of course is the vast majority of players, can believe that. Because if you are largely pressing your buttons randomly, then you can easily lose a load of them and not really notice the difference other than you've not got as many buttons to press. But even in terms of the people who realise that it is going to have a major effect on the playstyle, it's still very, very difficult to provide definitive feedback on the issue, because Blizzard can just say, but you're saying this now, but in actual fact your Azerite traits are going to cover up a lot of these gaps. But then they also deliberately don't let us see what these Azerite traits are. It's only very, very recently we got to see any Azerite traits at all. There's still dozens that have not been released, and we can't really comment on them. And this is another thing that they often do during Alpha Beta. When it's on something for which they want to be able to say, we've got it, it's all covered, it's all sorted, there's this thing that's going to explain and sort everything out, we're just not going to show it you yet. And then by the time it is being shown, well, then it's too late to change direction. That's another feature, and that is definitely a feature with the Azerite armor. So, again, you couldn't have any successful lobbying on the issue of retaining any artifact abilities that people feel are integral to their class, even though Blizzard have asked for feedback on that, because Blizzard will be feeling that they've got it covered with the Azerite traits. We can't see the Azerite traits, so we can't really form an opinion. So there'll be a lot of people hesitant to really criticise, because actually it makes sense. Well, yeah, I can believe that the Azerite traits, are particularly on raid gear, hopefully on dungeon gear as well, are actually going to have some gameplay change and effects, and therefore, yeah, they could make the overall toolkit a lot healthier. That makes sense. There's nothing that you can really poke holes in that. It's just that we don't know that that will be the case, because we don't know what they are. And in fact, now that it's been opened up to beta, that actually means they're less likely to change direction. Usually with beta, it's when they're adding loads more people in. And you can imagine what it's like for these people suddenly being added in, thinking, oh great, I can try things out myself and offer some proper feedback instead of just watching videos. The irony is that much less of that feedback will have any impact now. Little tweaks, sure, little tweaks. But in terms of changing the direction of a gameplay philosophy, it's already potentially too late. And for a lot of things, definitely too late. And the further we go into beta, the more likely it is to be that we're just testing for bugs, stress testing, and those little balancing tweaks, not whether an ability should be in or not. That is sort of passing us by very rapidly, and very, very soon, if not already, the door is closed. So just to finish off and to go through the comment, just to make sure that I have hopefully covered everything here. So what could the community do to prevent Blizzard forcing... For personal loot, read any issue that you believe is unpopular. First of all, if it only affects Mythic Raiders, I know the personal loot issue doesn't, but the people who are going to care about it most are going to be particularly the higher end Mythic Raiders. If you're in a small community, not at all. It's too small a group. Even though it's a fairly vocal group, it's too small a group to have any effect whatsoever, particularly if there are people supporting an issue. Whether that support is informed or not is irrelevant. It's nonetheless going to be there. And as I've said, Blizzard will see two types of people whenever they're saying this is going to be how it is. They're going to see people who oppose it and people who support it with caveats. And the people who oppose it, they'll just view as trolls. And to be honest, quite a lot of them are. Because really, on any internet discussion, you get what I call trolls, white knights, and then you've got the people who genuinely have a view on it. The white knights are the ones who are going to support you through thick or thin. Blizzard always have those, always stroking their ego. The trolls, you always have those. Those are the people who will oppose whatever you do, and you will always have those. Then you have everyone else. So how do you distinguish if someone's supporting something? Are they a white knight or are they genuinely supporting it? If they're against it, are they a troll or are they genuinely against it? How do you distinguish? Blizzard don't care. There's enough people saying that this is a fantastic idea, oh, thanks very much, oh, that makes sense, that they just don't care. The other thing I want you to notice is whenever they announce some of these things, They never write a post that says, oh, we're thinking about doing this. What do you guys think? There's never a post like that. The posts are always, in Battlefront, or in the next expansion, or in this upcoming patch, we're going to be doing this. It's a statement of inevitability. And although sometimes they ask for feedback, you'll note sometimes they don't even ask for feedback. It's there for information, not to be messed with. Even when they do ask for feedback, the feedback they want is, what a great system, but maybe there's this tiny little tweak you'd like to make. That's all they're after. That's what he even said about the GCD thing. He said, we don't want to hear that it's a bad system and should be removed. We only want to hear how it affects a niche ability. And then maybe we'll roll a die and decide whether or not to leave it on or take it off. In terms of communities, unless there's a massive blow up, the only one, as I say, where they've ever really changed their mind is flying. And you could argue Classic WoW, although that's a sort of slightly separate issue. But nonetheless, that's another one where pressure has caused them to do that. You could argue it's not necessarily pressure from the community. There's other things in that as well. It says forum posts. Forum posts, maybe. The problem is, ironically, the WoW forums are not really very well attended. In fact, I wrote a post last night on the beta forums for Ret Paladins, and I said that, I haven't written as many as I did during Legion Alpha, because, or Legion Beta even, both of them, simply because it hasn't seemed to be a two-way process in the same way. I'm not saying that every time I post something I expect a blue response, but just in general, if you look at the forums in general, there are not as many blue responses as there were during the Legion development cycle. During BFA, there's been very little, almost no engagement from blue posts on anything. When you look at the blue tracker, there's this, one or two every now and then. It was actually quite active during Legion. So yeah, it hasn't seemed to be the two-way process, and so, I haven't bothered as much. Petitions, we know that they respond very negatively to petitions. Petitions don't work. You don't get enough people supporting them. And we know that they're banned on the official forums, so they'll just lock a post before it can even get any traction, if it even pretends to be a petition. So that definitely doesn't work. Against videos from influencers, as I've said, they don't happen. Even when an influencer says they're opposed to a particular thing, they're not really trying to make a call to action on it, again, for whatever reason. It says how to turn the tide. We can't. When there are certain things they will change their mind on, if it's something that they're not fully committed to. But if they are fully committed to an idea, particularly if it comes from someone who's very influential in the Blizzard development team, you will never change their mind before it goes live. Now, of course, there are some things that they got very badly wrong during Legion and were told about before it went live. And they've realised it, unfortunately, only during the course of Legion. And it's been slightly, it's sort of been very quietly eased out of the door for BFA. There's certain things that are just disappearing without much heralding, because they don't want to say, oh yeah, we got that. Sometimes they do say, well, we got that wrong. Usually you'll notice they'll say that sort of thing when it was the responsibility of developers that are no longer there or no longer influential, because usually they'll admit, oh, we got certain things wrong, like years ago. Not immediately. They don't usually say, oh, we got this thing wrong that we just decided right now. They just ease it out very slowly. Maybe in a few years' time, they'll sort of go through that. So unfortunately, with certain things, so if we go through some of them, the personal loot changes will go ahead. I mean, that's going ahead. The GCD thing will go ahead. If you're lucky, they may take some of your abilities off the GCD just to show that they're listening, for no gameplay reason. The way they're managing the respecking of Azerite armor, which basically forces you to have multiple pieces of the same one for different specs, is fairly unpopular. But again, there doesn't seem to be much wriggle room on that one. Although you could argue if there were more sustained pressure against that. But that's a classic. I mean, that's an interesting one, because that's a classic example of one that most players, the sort of players who might actually oppose it and write forum posts, are not even aware of at the moment. In fact, you could argue there's a couple of things that at the moment are not even on people's radars. And so there's not enough momentum for it. So there's the Azerite armor issue, which I'm going to do a video on later on, so that should be out in the next day or two anyway. And the other one actually is on secondary stats, again related to Azerite armor, which will also be in that video. Because 3 of our major sources of secondary stats are not, because Azerite armor doesn't have secondary stats on it, which is a sort of a good thing. With the way Azerite armor works, you can't just have 2 random secondary stats on them. But again, I'll explain that in that video. But the fact that they don't have secondary stats on them at all means our source of secondary stats has just been massively diminished. So anyone who needs, for example, a certain amount of haste or mastery or whatever to achieve a bit of a class nirvana is going to find it extremely difficult to get it, because 3 of your major sources of them are gone for BFA without any recalibration on other pieces. But again, that's something that's not even on people's radars. So that's the sort of thing people are going to start to come to life to after it goes live. By which time, well, do you know what? It's too late then. And that happens again as well. That's another reason, you know, to get any massive change of direction when Blizzard have set their mind on something, you need so many players writing forum posts that they oppose it, that it only happens once it's gone live. It doesn't happen at any other time, because the vast majority of people do not keep their finger on the pulse of what's actually going on. And these sort of issues are not covered by very many people. You know, I try and cover these issues. There's a small number of other people who do, but very few people cover the nitty-gritty, because maybe the nitty-gritty is not seen as exciting as, you know, new eye colours or something like that. So long story short, there is no effective way to mobilise the community against something that Blizzard are determined to do. The only way is to wait for it to go live, unfortunately, as defeatist as that may sound, and if other people find it very unpopular, they will say so, and then maybe for the next expansion it disappears or reverts, or maybe something else comes in place to ease it out. So those are my thoughts on the issue of trying to change Blizzard's minds on anything. If you've got any comments, and I'm sure you have, then throw those down below. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to like, subscribe if you've not already done that. Share with anyone else who might also be interested. Until next time, I'll see you later.